2020 orders superseding certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted at this meeting. Town hall is closed to the public. Board members will participate in this meeting remotely, as this meeting will be accessible to the public via Zoom online option. Okay. That being the case, at 7:30, I will open the first continuation. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold continuations of public hearings in accordance with the Mass Wetlands Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw on the notice of intent for the proposed construction of a driveway in the 50-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands that will serve as a single-family dwelling located outside the buffer zone at Assessors Map 59, Parcel 60A, Lot 4, Blackstone Street. Bill Housing, Land Planning, Hartford Avenue, Bellingham has submitted the filing on behalf of Ed Raynaud, Linwood, Mass. The continuations will be held at the Bellingham, will be held via Zoom on the evening of June 10th at 7:30. Okay. So,
oh, that's better.
Bill Housing is present.
He is present.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Mhm.
As is Dan Wells.
Nice.
Good evening.
Excellent.
Thank you, Dan.
Who would you like first? Dan has the update from all the turtle stuff.
There's just one comment I'd like to say, and then I'll hand it over to you. The applicant, the notice of intent has been revised, and we have a new applicant name and address. It's Rob Sherrier, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah. So DEP's, yes. So we changed that because the other fellow is no longer involved. So we want to have the continuity because this this filing also has requires filing with natural heritage.
Okay, I will provide you an update. So we're waiting on Natural Heritage to issue the conservation and management permit. So Rob has submitted the necessary filing fee to them. I've submitted an application and the draft CR language that I worked with town council on. So I emailed Lauren Glorioso this afternoon to try and get an update, but I did not get a response. So they've been pretty slow in the last few weeks in terms of their response. So they're not bound to any timelines given what's going on with the emergency orders. So, but I anticipate, you know, they have what they need and they've had it for over a month. So we have to be getting very close, hopefully, for them issuing. You know, I'll follow up again tomorrow, but, you know, we don't have that permit. We do have the ENF process completed. We have a certificate from MIPA, so that part is completed. So Natural Heritage has everything they need to issue their permit.
So what happened is I had asked if Bill could get me a revised plan for the lot itself because we didn't have the newly revised version that included the location of a portion of the CR on this particular lot. As you know, there's 4-lot subdivision and the CR is applicable to the entire 4 lots. I sent the revised plan out for everyone. Hopefully you had a chance to look at it.
If you guys want to screen share, I can pull it up so everyone can take a look.
Would you please?
Okay.
Jim, it's okay?
Yep, Bill, just give me 1 second and I'll give you access.
Yep. I'll see if I can get it right on my end too.
You should have access, Bill.
Okay. So I want to share screen.
You want that?
You can get it on. Just use that.
Okay, can you guys see that?
Yes.
We can.
Yes.
Yeah, the revised plan shows the conservation restriction. It's hatched with dots. With the big label in the middle there, so there's no confusion. And the proposed signage is like in magenta all around it, with the signs about 35 feet apart per the request of the commission. I can zoom in if it helps.
Is this the same plan you sent out to me?
What's the
Yeah.
revised?
It's just that I didn't see those markers on this plan.
You have the blueprint copy?
Yes.
Yeah, they wouldn't be colored, they'd all be blue.
Okay, okay, got it. Yes, I mean,
So what we have, again, to refresh the memories of the commission, because this has been going on for some time, the initial filing was for a single-family dwelling to be outside the buffer zone, driveway access to be within the 100-foot buffer zone. This was part of a 4-lot subdivision, and it was determined that the subdivision itself and the work within was in an area designated as estimated habitat for eastern box turtle. That triggered not MIPA review, Fisheries and Wildlife Review. And as Dan Wells was talking about earlier, there's a comprehensive management plan that's required, along with the conservation restriction. Now, Dan Wells, Goddard, and Town Council have been working on this and have gotten it to the point where it's acceptable to all parties. So right now, we're waiting for Fisheries and Wildlife. And, you know, we heard Dan's report saying that they've had it for, I believe, a month. And, you know, the state right now is moving at a snail's pace. And, you know, nobody's in the offices, people working remotely, I understand that. But from our perspective, you know, it's a driveway in a buffer zone. And I'm thinking that we're probably far enough along to be able to close this hearing. And then we can put language in the order of conditions with some specificity relative to the fact that, you know, the conservation restriction has to be completed and recorded as part of the order of conditions. I had one question for Dan, if he's still available. You said you had a MIPA certificate for the ENF. Are they requiring a draft environmental impact report?
No EIR is required.
Okay. So that even simplifies matters further. Does anybody on the board have any questions about this?
No.
What's the status of the other projects? I know this one's the closest to the borders. Just curious, are the other lots not going ahead at a different rate?
The other lots are not jurisdictional to us.
Just point of information. I understand it's not jurisdictional since
Okay.
the applicant's reps here, but they might know.
All of those are subject to the conservation and management permit, so no work on any of the lots can happen. They're all in the natural heritage priority habitat, so no work on any of lot 1 through 4 can happen until we're done with natural heritage.
Good. Okay, and so the only other observation or question I had possibly for Bill, Rob Sherrier, who is now the person of note on the revised notice of intent, has committed to Ann and I. Well, we went out and did a couple of inspections on the property to make sure that there were no problems. Before we accept the conservation restriction, we need to do an inspection. And we noticed that on the abutting property, there was an area where there had been some dumping occurring. As it turns out, that's on town property. So our administrator spoke with Mr. Sherrier, and he had indicated that he would be willing to clean that up for us before construction started on any of the lots. And we would really like to make that a matter of public record. Now, Jim, are you aware of that?
Yes, Ann made me aware of that
Okay.
late last week, I believe.
All right, and Bill, have you spoken with Mr. Sherrier about that?
I have, and he had told me that he had talked with Ann about that.
Yeah, and he told me that he promised to do it, so that he would do it, but we just wanted to talk about that tonight to get it out in the public record. I think he's a man of his word.
Yeah, check the waiting room. I saw some people waiting. I asked Rob to tune in tonight as well.
Oh, well, okay. Is everyone done with the plan?
Yeah, I pulled up the big conservation restriction plan so you guys can see the whole.
That would be
Okay, let's
great.
take a peek at that, please.
Yeah, it's up right now. Is that what you see?
No.
Okay. Maybe it's a new share. Okay, let's try this one.
Much better.
Okay. So that's the overall project. Again, conservation restriction in dots hatched with all the signs shown. And all of the non-hatched area would be potential building area. We anticipate it not all being disturbed though.
Mhm.
So the only thing that's jurisdictional, ladies and gentlemen, is lot 4. And you can see nearly half of lot 4 is going to be part of the conservation restriction. You can see the little area to the west and the south. That's where the driveway is going to be. And that's where the dry access to the conservation restriction area is going to be. The area that we're talking about where the trash piles are to the northwest, a little bit more to the west.
It's kind of up there. Can you see the cursor?
Yes, we see
do.
it,
Yep.
but I think it's a little bit further to the left.
Oh,
Uh,
there's
yeah,
a
I'm
break in
pointing
the
at my
wall.
screen. It's not helping anybody. Keep going to the left.
Off the plan.
Well, okay, lower it a little and keep going to the left. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Yeah, right there. Okay, that's where the area was. We've been out there a couple of times, so I think that would be a real good thing for the community to get that off of the town land. We appreciate Mr. Sherrier volunteering to do that. Okay. Now you said there was somebody in the waiting room?
Yeah, a couple of people popped up. One says, got Ronald something. I did see
Robert.
Robert a little bit ago.
Yeah, that's Rob Sherrier.
Oh, there we go.
Hello there.
Okay, hey.
Hey, I made it. I made it.
All right.
Well, I think if we're done with the plans, we can drop the plans.
Okay. So I will stop share.
Okay,
How's that?
There we go.
that's good.
Okay. We'll
All
get
right.
this.
Hey, there he is.
Hey, how we doing?
Doing real well, doing real well.
All right.
So did you hear us talking about you?
No, I didn't because I just got into the meeting now. I'm sorry. It took
No,
me a
it's-
little bit of effort.
It's okay. We were thanking you for undertaking that cleanup on behalf of the town.
Yeah.
And, you know, we made it a matter of record per your agreement. And I think at this stage of the game, if there are no further questions or comments,
Well, if it's all right, I'd like to ask one question.
sure.
As far as the amount of signs that we're putting up, I remember we had a meeting a while back, and we touched base on a lot about how many signs to put up, where the state required, I believe it was every 150 feet, and the board requested every 33 feet, I believe.
Yes, that was correct.
Is it, you know, I got into the pricing of all this, and it's pretty expensive because of the amount of signs. Is there a way that we could discuss possibly cutting it down a little bit?
Well, I think, from my perspective, I think part of the problem is it's with it being an open area, having signs a little more frequently would be important. But board members, anybody have comments? I know Mike was interested in the frequency of the signs.
Yeah.
Mike?
Does the applicant have a recommendation?
Well, I'd like to potentially maybe something between what the state regs and what you guys are proposing. Maybe cutting it down somewhat, because I believe I'm looking at like 61 signs.
May I ask a question of Dan Wells? Is he still on?
Yep, I'm here.
Dan, so this was the plan that you sent in with the CR, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, we had one with fewer signs that met natural heritage's criteria, and then Bill created a new sign based on our meeting with you folks. So we would technically probably have to go back and say, this is now the CR plan with fewer signs, but what we presented to you was acceptable to natural heritage, so.
Well, some of those signs are going to be placed along the wetland area on lot 4. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Correct. Along where the driveway is.
Now that's a heavily wooded area. So I'm thinking we might be able to eliminate some signs along there because there's going to be a driveway and the property owner is not going to want to be imposing any kind of activity inside the buffer zone because his driveway is there. I don't have the plan that shows the number of signs there, but I'm sure we could reduce significantly a bunch of those.
All right. Is there any other areas that we can possibly do also?
Well, once you come out of the woods and you go by the proposed dwelling, I think we're going to need them there to remind the property owners at lot 4, okay, you just can't go out there in that open field. And we talked about this before, Bob.
Yep.
ATV use, people expanding yards, actually incurring activity onto the open space. But
Okay. All right. Well, anything would help, So if that's okay with the board to reduce it along that line, I'm all right with that if we could do that.
And I'd also suggest on lot 1, that line goes right through the woods. That'll be another good spot too.
We're especially concerned about lot 1.
with the potential
I
for
just-
horse owners and, all that open field behind their house. That's an activity that is prohibited in the conservation restriction.
Right.
We don't want to get involved in enforcement issues. But here's what we'll do. We'll take a look at the signage plan, and in the order of conditions, we can come up with an actual count in the areas where maybe we can eliminate them.
That'd be
Put that in
fine.
the order. Is that?
That's an improvement as far as I can see. So I'd be happy with that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. In that case, I'll entertain a motion to close this hearing and issue the order of conditions.
So moved.
Second.
Neil and seconded by Ariane. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's by unanimous vote. So lot 4 is closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
very
you.
much. You're welcome. Have a good evening.
Me too.
Okay, you too.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Okay. Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold continuations of public hearings in accordance with the Mass Wetlands Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw on the notice of intent for the proposed grading, site work, and stormwater management system associated with the 103 lot residential subdivision entitled Bellingham Shores, including the construction of the subdivision roadway located within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands, with proposed filling of 1,757 square feet of isolated vegetated wetlands. The property is located at Assessor's Map 72, lots 13-1, 13-2, 14-0 through 14-7 and 14-16 at South Main Street and Cross Street, Bellingham. Scott Goddard, Goddard Consulting, Northborough, Mass. has submitted the filing on behalf of Rick Terrell, Bellingham Residential Realty, Quarry Drive, Milford. The continuation will be held on Wednesday, June 10th at 7:50 p.m. Okay, so I see Shawn is here and I think Mark is here. Okay. So it's been a while since we've seen you guys. We go all the way back to November. Just a quick recap. At the November hearing, we directed the applicant and their representative to come up with a replication plan for the isolated vegetation that was going to be filled. They have been working on that diligently. They requested a continuation in February, and we had them scheduled for March 25th. And that's when it's all really hit the fan. So essentially, we really haven't seen a whole lot in terms of presentation. We have not been out in the field to inspect. Before the hearing is closed tonight, we will set up that site inspection. I understand that you've been out with the planning board, that you've conducted a review in the field with them. So we'll get to that. Before I ask you to do like a recap of where we are and what the changes are, one of the questions we did ask back in November is on the lot count. It seemed that the applicant was counting lots that are immediately adjacent to Lakeview Estates, but are comprised of a stormwater management structure and armored drainage swales. And we asked the applicant to clarify with the planning board whether or not the count for the number of lots was going to be accurate. So hopefully you've had an opportunity to address that with the planning board, or did they allow those lots to be counted?
Yeah, if you, do you want me to address that right now, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Okay, we haven't drilled down into that detail with the planning board as far as the total site yield. We've been primarily focused on the technical aspects of the plan, the engineering review and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But what we have done is redesign and recalculate the dedicated open space as part of the project to remove the area of the detention basin on that triangle lot right next to Silver Lake Road. So that area, which is I think it's approximately an acre or half acre, has been removed from the open space calculation. It's a set aside standalone area. But we have submitted additional information that the planning board has asked about whether or not the remaining land can be developed for the yield. And we have submitted that to the planning board showing that it can. We just haven't had the continued conversation with them yet.
Okay, the reason we asked all the way back in November was, of course, obviously, if it would affect the number of lots that you were entitled to, we would ask that the lots, if there were lots to be eliminated, would be those lots that were in the buffer zone, close to the southeastern detention basin. But you're at least addressing the concern that we raised back in November. So, okay. And I'm sure that Jim Kupfer will keep us apprised of how that's going.
Yeah, and just for your information for the commission and those listening, we believe, and it is our position, that we are showing an accurate yield for the site. We're just waiting for the confirmation through the planning board process.
Okay, so would you like to proceed with the changes that have?
Can you just present?
Yeah, well, yeah. Present the plan showing the changes.
Yes, absolutely. And we have a brief slide presentation to kind of walk us through. What is the best way? Do you want me to share the screen to mine and I can show it off of mine?
Would you?
Yeah, who's going to be controlling the presentation? Is it Shawn?
It'll be me.
Okay, I'll give you the opportunity to share a screen.
Thanks, Jim.
You should have the credentials now, Shawn.
Okay, so what do we got? Share screen. We're going to do screen 2. I think I've done this right. Is everybody seeing this
Yes.
slide? Bellingham Shores Conservation Commission, June 10th, 2020.
Yep.
Okay, great. So take a couple steps back. As you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, it has been a while since we've been here before you. So we wanted to just walk back things a little bit with a brief overview of the project, the stormwater, some of the other things we've developed since our last conversation, the phasing. And then I'm going to turn it over to Mark Arnold of Goddard Construction to talk more specifically about the wetlands and the replication area and mitigation, things of that nature. So without further ado, again, very quickly, I think everyone here knows where the project is, but it's about a 146-acre parcel located between South Main Street, Center Street, and Cross Street and Silver Lake Road. This area right in here, including this parcel here that we were just talking about. There is a couple different wetland systems on site that I think Mark will talk about, as well as a perennial stream that runs through the site here. The proposed project for the 146 acres is 103 residential single-family homes clustered. We would have 2 points of access to the site from South Main Street here and Cross Street here. Of that 146 acres, 93 acres, or just under 93, I think it's about 93 or 92.9, or would be left as permanent open space, undisturbed, well, with the exception of this area here, which has been previously disturbed, but this would then be incorporated into the open space, deeded open space to be left in perpetuity. As well, we would also have a perimeter buffer around the site, primarily behind the residences on Douglas Drive, South Main Street here, around the back of these residences on Center Street, and over to Cross Street. So this site would be well out of public view for the most part, kind of set into its own little area. And the design of the site, we've focused on the upland area, the southern portion of the site. These olive areas are the wetlands. So we've pulled everything south of that area, with the exception of the stormwater basins here, which would be just grassed infiltration basins. And again, this is a MRD development. It requires 40% open space, and we're providing over 60% open space. The open space is kind of incorporated into 3 separate areas. Area 1 is the largest in the center portion of the site, all wooded, 76.5 acres. Area 2 is primarily this buffer around the southern portion of the site. That encompasses about 8.8 acres. Again, all mostly wooded land. There is some existing cleared land here that would be revegetating. And then area 3, which is the 7.62 acres up by Silver Lake. This area right here is the area that I was just discussing that we've taken out of the open space. This is land part of the project, but it has a drainage easement, and it's been set aside for that, not included in any of the open space calculations. Stormwater management. The site, basically, it all drains down to Silver Lake, as I'm sure everyone knows. But in analyzing this, there was kind of 2 distinct watershed areas. The first area sheds over into this large wetland system that has the perennial stream that then drains down to Silver Lake this way. And then a second, which drains through an intermittent stream down over here to the right. So in analyzing this, we took both of these watersheds and analyzed them separately. And as a result, we're controlling both the rate and volume of runoff to each of those receiving areas, meaning we're not increasing the rate of flow or the volume of flow to each of those areas. We're providing stormwater treatment in the form of deep sump catch basins. Each of the infiltration basins has a large sediment forebay, and then the infiltration basin itself meeting the DEP TSS removal requirements. And in doing so, and by reducing the amount of volume of runoff, we're also exceeding the DEP recharge requirements. In addition, once these lots are kind of built, the roadway's built, the lot's established, and a house is planned for it, the house lots will be required to have an individual recharge system for the roof runoff, as required by the town bylaw. That was not included in our calculations, so there'll be a further reduction of the runoff from the house lots with the infiltration systems required. BSC group has been reviewing the stormwater system. We've received some comments, generally minor comments, through 2 rounds of review and revision. And we've addressed, we believe, all their comments most recently in a May 28th submission. I believe I saw Frank from BSC Group is online here, so I will let him speak to that. We've also provided a comprehensive post-construction pollution prevention and stormwater operations and maintenance plan, again, reviewed by BSC and has been revised to address their most recent comments. So with respect to enclosing and stormwater, we think we've met all the DEP and local requirements, and we believe we've addressed all of the peer review comments. So we believe our stormwater system's in full compliance. We've also developed a phasing plan for the project. There's been much discussion with the planning board, since we haven't had the ability to have much discussion with you folks, but of phasing the project, trying to keep the work areas as small as possible to minimize the potential of erosion and construction-related stormwater issues. Originally, we had proposed 3 phased areas. We got further comments back from planning board and BSC, so we've gone back and we've revised our phasing plan to show 5 different phases right now. Again, keeping the areas small. The first phase would be shown in the green closest to Cross Street, and the reason we're starting here is this is where we're tying into the town water and sewer. So we need to get that construction done and established and bring everything kind of right to left, if you would. So as part of this phase, this first stormwater basin would be constructed and stabilized. We are proposing as you know, the removal of a small isolated wetland in this area. We have a replication area here that Mark will talk a little bit more about. We've included this work as part of the phase 1 as well. Moving to the left, this pink area would be the phase 2 construction, continuing the roadway, bringing the utilities further along, constructing this second basin. So by the time we get to phase 3, all the stormwater final infrastructure is complete. So we again continue the roadway and the utilities out to South Main Street. So we would create our second connection at that point, and then go back and do phase 4 and phase 5 here. So the idea is getting the utilities moving right to left, developing this back portion of the site, and then moving into the front here. In addition to this phasing plan, we've recently, by recent I mean today, submitted a draft SWIP to via PDF. I will be getting you hard copies for review. And prior to construction, we'll also have a trucking management plan. There will be fill brought to this site. I think we were estimating somewhere in the neighborhood of 30,000 yards. And a construction schedule that can be reviewed with the town. And this would be more phase specific, how this phase would be developed. And this plan just shows the erosion control notes and details that we've had in the plan. We've added some additional construction phase erosion control BMPs details. And again, just wanted to show this. This is in the plan set. At this point, I would like to turn it over to Mark to talk about the wetlands. And Mark, I think it might be easier if you just talk and tell me when to go to the next slide. Mark, you got to do your mute.
Thank you so much, Shawn. That was a great summary for the whole project. So we're going to move on to the wetlands assessment here for Silver Lake. So Shawn, we can proceed to slide number 10.
Okay.
So this is just a general overview plan just to help the commission see the work in the buffer zone, but also kind of highlighting the open space that's being preserved and the unique opportunity that we have to not only preserve open space, but also preserve critical connectors and other areas that are part of the other wetland system habitats that we have on this site. So this plan really just shows you with the red arrows that the connectors that are there between the uplands and the wetlands that we have on site. We have the Perennial River running through the northern part of the site there, and the uplands that connect between that riverfront area and the BVWs around it provide a lot of connectivity, which this open space preserves by keeping the development to the south and also allowing us to do a cluster development in that respect. The goal of this was to minimize impacts to the buffer zone, riverfront area, and even large areas of upland as a benefit to the minor disturbance and the filling of the isolated wetlands that we can replicate in another location. And you can see on this plan, we have the isolated wetland shown in the little blue with the green circle. And so that shows an isolated wetland that's 2 to 1 the size of the existing wetland. So we're doubling the size of the isolated wetland. It's still going to be an isolated wetland, completely in the uplands, and it's going to have a completely 100% protected buffer zone. There's no development proposed within 100 feet of that isolated wetland. It's going to be completely within the open space, which basically replicates everything that it currently has, doubling its area, providing additional functions, but also ensuring that that isolated wetland can have connectivity with the BVW systems around it. And that was our goal when we located this replication area where we did. We looked at an area where we could minimize the number of trees that would be removed. We have about less than a dozen small trees, less than 8 inches that need to be removed. And so we have minimum disturbance to access the area. We can replicate in an area where there's some invasives, and we can ensure that this wetland has connectivity to the other wetlands. So this is the rundown here. So the access point for this replication area, we looked at it very carefully to consider how could we get to this area without disturbing, first of all, mature vegetation, native vegetation, and overall forest vegetation. So the access point comes from the west and comes in to the replication area through the existing field. So we have existing open meadow fields, which basically have herbaceous vegetation. There's mostly grasses, and then you have some vine systems as well. And then once you get close to the replication area, you actually hit the tree line. We've actually surveyed the trees in that area to actually know how these trees, where they're located and how we can access without disturbing any trees while accessing the replication area. So this plan shows you the proposed limit of work. We have orange construction fence along the access path so that we define where our access is going to be. We snake our way through the trees, avoiding all the mature vegetation. Allows us to get to a wetland replication area, to excavate it, to bring in our wetland soils from our impact area, to supplement with an organic compost that would bring the organic matter to at least 12 to 20%. We would transplant the wetlands, plants that are in the isolated wetland, to this replication area. We would also plant the normal requirements for plantings in a replication area on top of that to basically bolster the density by transplanting and also planting the required quantities. Again, we have minimal tree removal, which allows us to have a very good canopy around us. We'll still be planting wetland trees within the replication area, but you also have the shelter of a sheltered forested replication area, which is also kind of a unique opportunity to create that. We've done test pits out there to confirming where the groundwater is, and this grading is based on the observations of groundwater using redox morphic features from test pits that we conducted within this area before they surveyed it, so we can ensure that it has adequate groundwater as the isolated wetland currently has. So this replication area provides 3,514 square feet of isolated wetlands. Again, it's completely isolated, but it has the connectivity to the east and to the west, wetlands to the north, the riverfront area, to allowing this wetland to connect with the other wetlands through uplands. It has a 100% protected buffer zone. So there's no disturbance within the buffer zone. Like most replication areas, usually have work within 50 feet of it or of a replication area. This one has 100% protection, and it's completely within the protected open space. The size of the replication area and the shape of it allows you to have more functions with respect to flood control, erosion, and sedimentation control, because the current isolated wetland is on a slope. It does not contain floodwaters. It can't really slow down water moving through it. This wetland will be slightly flatter, but still sloped, allowing it to also do the current functions, but also detain more during large storms and then recharge naturally like a wetland does. That will actually increase the functions while you're also doubling the area that it actually provides those features. In addition, we're going to be adding additional wildlife habitat features. We're going to be transplanting the fruit-bearing shrubs that are in the isolated wetland to this replication area. We've made sure that we have lots of fruit-bearing shrubs within the plantings as well, so that we're going to increase the food sources. We're going to ensure that we're going to have our pit and mound topography to provide a diverse landscape. The wetland replication, again, and is replicating an isolated wetland. It's very much on a slope. It's fairly flat. There's very few depressions or other habitat features. There's a few, but there's not as many as we can definitely have in this replication area. We can use large boulders. The woody debris we can definitely add to create more areas for small animals and amphibians and other mammals to navigate through, and also hide and provide cover in addition to food sources from those areas. So we believe that this location is definitely the most ideal location because you get a very similar wetland in the sense of it's in a forest already. It's sheltered by mature trees around it, so you're getting the same similar geographical and forestry nature, but we're also able to double the size. We have a hydrology, we have connectivity with between the wetlands, which the current isolated wetland is so far from the other wetlands. If you developed around it, you could end up isolating it completely from the connectivity that it could provide. So where you think that this location and the design that we have is definitely a benefit, especially considering how much open space is preserved on this site in the sense of upland areas that are even outside conservation jurisdiction, which is a huge benefit to protecting the main connectors on this site.
Let me go back, Mark. I skipped over this one. Sorry.
Yeah. So that's the replication area. So now we're going to just back to the wetland impact. So this shows the buffer zone impacts to the site. As Shawn mentioned, it's very minimalistic. 4.32% of the total buffer zone on site will be disturbed, which is a very often unheard of number when it comes to usually filing for a notice of intent. But the project, again, it proposes to have the 2 stormwater basins within the buffer zone areas, which is the primary buffer zone disturbance. There's several other house lots that get into the 50 to 100 foot buffer zone, which are shown in that bright pink color. And then we have the isolated wetland in the middle of the site. And again, the goal of this project was to have a density that would minimize overall land disturbance, which everybody understands. Overall land disturbance is an environmental concern as it is, and if we can reduce that overall disturbance, that's a benefit to the wetlands and to the overall environment around them, to have more uplands that are protected. So the isolated wetlands, if it was left in place, you would end up isolating it from its other connectivity because it's more than 400 feet from a BVW. You could put roadways around it without even being within jurisdiction, and you'd end up cutting off the area from any type of connectivity to the other wetlands. The replication area restores all those functions and values, but allows the connectivity to still exist. And we feel that this is definitely an opportunity that fits the bylaw waiver request that we filed with the commission to really provide something that replicates the wetland, which is required by the bylaw at a 2-to-1 ratio to mimic and enhance the wetland functions and values, to have a replication area that's 100% protected by 100 feet of undisturbed buffer zone, to have connectivity to other wetlands, which is an important wildlife function. And so we believe that this definitely is the best alternative to preserving these wetland systems and the riverfront area from a disturbance that would normally occur if you were trying to avoid this isolated wetland. You'd have to shift things into other areas and you lose that connectivity, which this project has. The one thing I would like to note as well is that main stormwater basin in the middle of the site there, that's in the north, that access road it can still be a connector between the wetland systems because it's unfenced. So it's an access road that comes through to the stormwater basin. There's a fence around that stormwater basin for security reasons for children, but the connectivity of that long access road is like a long gravel driveway that's never used, and wildlife would be moving back and forth. So that allows that connectivity around that stormwater basin versus a roadway going to a bunch of houses in that stormwater basin location. And so the design of the basin at location, I think, is definitely the best optimal design for this property to preserve the connectivity in the wetlands. And definitely overall, we feel this project really provides unique opportunities that sometimes the bylaw can't even understand, but we can see here on the plans that there's a benefit to land preservation, preservation of the wetlands, and also minimizing impacts to disturbance, which is overall benefit to the environment. So that's the overview of the wetlands and the buffer zone areas. And I think that should be everything that we wanted to give you an overview on, Shawn, and we're glad to take questions.
Yep, exactly. And thank you, Mark. And I can either keep the screen here if there's slides that people want to look at, or I can stop the share, whatever the chair feels better.
Well, we have about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
And so I think maybe it's a great overview. So I don't think we need to share the screen.
Okay.
It might be helpful to see,
Thank you.
Now we can
Thank
see
you.
everybody again. We're used to these public meetings where, you know, you can look at people, you can be a little more demonstrative and understand where they're coming from. So I got a question right off the bat. Mark, did you design this wetland replication area?
Yes, yeah, I was the one who actually went out to the field, reviewed the existing isolated wetland, what it had, what features it had. I looked at the site plans, and I went into the field and looked around for places to build an isolated wetland, and a few options. And the key question was how much disturbance would be required to grade it out? Do we have the groundwater? Do we have the ability to kind of make it more forested, which is replicating what it is, because it's currently around a forest. There's an isolated wetland surrounded by upland forest. And so I was like, can we recreate that forested feel on site in some areas? And we walked into the woods and we found this area, and I'm like, this area is very open. There's almost no trees in this little clearing, one or two in the middle, and that's it basically. And we could grade this out right here. We dug some test pits. We had strong redox. We had some weeping in the ground. We're like, we've got groundwater that is here. It's just about 18 inches down below the surface in some spots. And if we grade this out, we can create that forested buffer zone around this isolated wetland with minimal tree clearing to create and replicate really well what we want to replicate. And at the same time, put it where it's completely protected with 100% protected buffer zone, which I think is a really cool idea.
Okay, so I like the enthusiasm. So I just want to point out and to ask the commission to remember, Post Office Place, we had an area there that was a little contentious at first, but it was a isolated vegetated wetland. The applicant did move that, and Mark, I believe you were responsible for recreating that wetland.
Yep.
We're coming to the close of the monitoring period on that. It was a good job.
It's definitely a top-notch replication area. That one came out fantastic.
We're very pleased. So there's a degree of comfort here. I just want you to understand that. Just a couple of observations. One of the things we've noticed in many of our larger replication areas is that we request an individual plan with all of the planting, the grading, a separate plan rather than a narrative, because a lot of times narratives get lost in translation. Whereas if there's a plan, you know, with grading, you get 20 scale plan or sometimes even a 10 scale plan, but with a whole list of the plants and, you know, the sequential methodology, even though obviously someone will be overseeing the construction, it's always handy for, you know, the equipment operators, you know, if the oversight is not present currently, to be able to do some rough grading and know where the plants are, where the stock is stored. That's just an observation. I do have a question.
We can accommodate, we can move that, we could put that whole narrative and all those details on the site plans.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just take that narrative, and the narrative is really just giving you the language. It gives you the sequencing. If that language is sufficient, we can copy and paste that and put it right on Shawn's plans. That way it's in the plan set with when the contractor sees the plan set, he'll have all those details on that plan. We can definitely do that.
Sure, and if you're gonna have mounding, snags, you know, planting locations, all of that kind of stuff, that's really helpful. This is a little bit larger than the one you did at Post Office Place.
Post Office Place is about 2,800 square feet, so we're only talking 35, so we're going 700 square feet more, so it's a little bigger.
Okay, and the next thing is, I'm just curious, you're preserving about 96 acres as part of the open space. Do you know, can you estimate offhand how much of that is currently wetland? Is it like,
I believe I have that number. Just give me, it's about 25 acres of wetlands and 63 acres of uplands.
okay.
So it's a lot of uplands.
So I think this is a good way to get reintegrated with the project. It's not ideal. I mean, I know Shawn and Mark have seen how we operate. We like to roll up our sleeves, look at the plans, get out the scales, do the measurements. This is a little bit difficult, and some of the work that we've done has been with the little PDFs, and I don't like that, but that's my particular thing. What we'd like to do is schedule a site walk. And of course, we're going to look at the locations of the 2 detention basins. And I know that they're marked out. We do not need to look at the resource areas except for the isolated vegetated wetland. We'll take a peek at that. And then we'll meander down the access to the proposed replication area. Commission members, do we have any availability on a weekday afternoon?
Yes,
No.
4:30 or after.
Probably
Right.
not for me.
I missed that. Sorry, Ariane.
Probably not for me this next week.
Okay, it would probably be next week. Mike?
Zero.
No, I don't know what he's doing.
Mike, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm pretty available. Just let's narrow it down to a day first.
Right,
Yeah, okay, no, I
right,
understand. Well, I figured if we had enough availability, we don't know about Shawn. We don't know about Noel. Noel's been pretty good about attending site walks during the week. So we have Neil, myself, and Mike, and possibly and Ann. I know Brian's back to work. That would be difficult. What would we look at for a possible day?
1 second.
Would Tuesday work? That would be the 16th.
Yeah, 16th works for me.
And Neil's checking right now.
Would you want Mark to attend, Cliff?
Yes, I would like, if Mark could attend, it would be very helpful.
Yep, I can do that.
Good. And everything's already staked out, so we don't have to worry about that.
Yep.
Okay.
So Tuesday work?
Tuesday works for me, Cliff.
All right, then what we'll do is this. We'll set up the site inspection for Tuesday at 4:30. Mark, where do you think the best place to meet is? Do you think it's on the South Main Street side or Cross Street?
I think South Main Street is the best because there's that paved area where you can pull off and park, and we can all park off the road safely and not be interfering with traffic. And then there's definitely ways to navigate in from there.
Okay.
Is that the one where the trailer was?
Yes.
That same spot right there?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so that's good news. I'll ask our administrator to contact Shawn and Noel and see if they are able to attend that. In the meantime, we have to look for a continuation time. I'd like to try to do this on the 24th. See if we can get a little momentum here. We have 2 new hearings coming in. Have they been scheduled?
No, there's only going to be one. It's just this one.
Okay, so we know we're going to have some stuff after. Why don't we continue this to 7:30? All right. I'll entertain a motion to conduct a site inspection on Tuesday, the 16th at 4:30, and to continue the hearing to the evening of June 24th at 7:30.
So moved.
Second.
That's Brian with the move and Neil with the second. Discussion?
I just wanted to see if Frank had any comments. Sorry.
All right, well, no. Frank, did you have any observations?
I've always tried to go by the tenet that it's better for me to be quiet and let people think I'm an idiot than to open my mouth and remove all doubt.
Heard that.
I will say that the folks, the developer project team has been very accommodating. They've done a lot of responses that I've gone through. I have not gone through in detail the latest responses, including the one we got today. But again, I think they're moving in the right direction. So I'll stop there, and at a future time, we can go into any more detail or address questions.
Okay, we have not really conducted a whole lot of review on this because the project for us had somewhat stalled. However, now that we've got this information, we will avail ourselves of your comments. We'll make sure that they're distributed to the commission. And so we have a motion, we have second, we've had discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's unanimous vote. All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, folks. We'll see you on the 24th.
You bet.
We will be there, Mark. We'll see you
All right.
there.
Thank you. I'll see you on Tuesday.
Got it. Okay, so now we have
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
how late are we scheduled this evening? I don't have the agenda.
Okay, what we've done is we've moved things around and moved things up a little bit. We're opening up the Candlelight Lane ones at 8:50. So we should be able to be done at 9:30. We're doing our best. So I'm going to dispense with the reading of the advertisement for 6987 Lake Street. This is the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. We met out in the field a week ago with Arthur Allen from Ecotech. We reviewed the resource areas present on site. We did discover a new resource area that had not been previously been mapped. It was also a vernal pool. These areas were to be added to a plan. The applicant has requested a continuation. They have not had an opportunity to either complete the survey or develop the plan. Do you have a preference for the?
Well, I think you talked about tonight.
Okay, do we have a time for that?
Yeah.
Okay, so at the applicant's request, we're going to continue this. We're not sure how long it's going to take for them to pull together that information. So I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing for the Lake Street abbreviated notice of resource area delineation to the evening of July 8th at 7:30.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Neil, second by Brian. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, by unanimous vote. We also have, this is a continuation for the solar project at 316 Hartford Avenue. This is for 14,000 square feet of BVW alterations. The applicant has requested that we continue. They were not prepared to meet this evening, so we are looking ahead, and we have a lot of things coming down the pike. We talked about doing this one on August 12th. Hopefully we'll be able to meet in person by then, or at least meet in person, you know, and limit the amount of public that we're dealing with. So at the applicant's request, I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing to the evening of August 12th at 7:30. What?
Did you want to go 7 instead?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'd like to do it at 7 based on the volume of applications we're receiving. So I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing at the applicant's request to the evening of August 12th at 7.
How much time are you planning to give, Mr. Chair?
Well, what we'll do is we'll give them a half hour.
Okay.
It's far enough, we've scheduled them far enough in advance so that they have ample time to get back to us with what they're going to do. So we'll have some idea of how much time they need.
Would have thought they would have had ample time already.
Agreed.
Agreed. We want to provide every opportunity to the applicant in this instance because they're preparing or they're proposing to cut trees in a resource area because they're shading a solar project. And if you'll all recall, those trees were there when they built the solar project.
So instead of the 12th of August, you want to do the 12th of never?
Unfortunately, that cannot be a viable alternative here.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice try.
Well, so moved.
Thank you. So August 12th at 7:30, we have a motion.
7, right?
7 o'clock.
7, yes.
None of us want to do it. I'll second it, only to keep things moving because nobody will go anywhere if we don't.
Mike.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Do we have any idea, Mr. Chair, if they reached out to the Army Corps of Engineers, since they would be going into the Army Corps' water to cut trees?
Well,
We have no more information.
we have no more information. It's one of the things that we requested at our last meeting, 4 months ago. One of the things that they were unable to get information on.
Okay.
I suspect that what happened was the way the plan was shown, there was a bleed over on the survey line onto their property. I don't think that it was actually, they were actually proposing to cut trees on the core site, but we'll let them clarify that. So we're going to have a motion and a second for August 12th at 7. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. By a
Which
vote.
one was Brian? Yes or no? Because he nodded to one and he raised his hand to the other.
I said yes.
Okay, I didn't hear. Thanks.
So by a vote of 3-1, motion carries. Okay. All right, we're on to our next hearing.
This one is, where is it?
This is for the Payne Street
Here we go. Yeah.
abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold continuations of public hearings in accordance with the Mass Wetlands Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and the abbreviated Notice of Resource Area Delineation for confirmation of the delineation of 1,408 linear feet of bordering vegetated wetlands, 181 linear feet of isolated vegetated wetlands, and 201 linear feet of a potential vernal pool located at Assessor's Map 95, Parcel 37, 180 Payne Street, Bellingham. Eric Diaz, Strong Point Engineering, West Bridgewater, Mass, has submitted the filing on behalf of Ron Bonvy, Mashpee, Mass. The continuations will be held at by Zoom on the evening of June 10th at 8:35. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. It's just for the record, Eric Dias, registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering Solutions. Tonight representing NECC Active Adult and Mr. Ron Bonvy, who I believe is actually on the call as well. And also on the call with us is Brad Holmes, the professional wetland scientist who did the delineation for us. So, Mr. Chairman, I know that you obviously we've already had a site walk out there and we've talked about it pretty extensively. If you'd like, I can share my screen and walk through the plan, kind of show what we started with and what we revised after the site walk.
I think for the record, that would be ideal.
You got it. I need someone to allow me to share my screen.
Mr. Jim.
You got it. It should be ready to go now.
All right. Yep, I got it. Okay, so. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
We can.
All right, so this is the New England Country Club site. It's several hundred acres of a site, but we're only focused on about 10 acres of it at this point, right off of Payne Street. Just by way of orientation, the main entrance to the site is south of where we are on Payne Street here, just off your page, with kind of where you can see my cursor, maybe a little bit beyond that. When we had originally done the delineation, we identified a BBW, an A series BBW in this location here, a B series BBW that is mainly off the property and just touches the property line here and then shoots back out, but it does have some buffer zone impacts. We identified an isolated wetland, which was the C series through here that contained a small PVP, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And we had identified also the D series, which we had originally classified as an isolated wetland. When we had our site walk back on May 20th, a couple of things. We did identify an intermittent stream that is actually draining. It's basically a discharge of stormwater, but it is an intermittent stream that emanates all the way up at the main entrance, or beyond the main entrance, I should say, to the country club. It passes under the main entrance through a culvert and then discharges down to our project area here. So we did locate that stream, we added that to the plan, and we changed the nomenclature to a bordering vegetated wetland for the D series down here. Additionally, when we were on site, we took a closer look at the vernal pool. It's located within the C series, and a couple of things. One, we did locate an additional flag based on some staining that we saw, which is this C3A that we picked up and added to the plan. The other thing we did is originally the vernal pool, when we were out there to do the original delineation, it was November. So it wasn't quite as flooded as it was when we were on site the other day. I know if you look in the middle of the vernal pool, there's a small tire in there that was just about submerged. So roughly guesstimating, it probably ponds to a depth of about 24 inches or so. So what we decided when we were on the site, it just made more sense to consider the boundary of the vernal pool to be to mimic the boundary of the wetland buffer, the wetland boundary in that location. So we've updated the plan accordingly. The other resource area that is on site is there is a mapped BLSF, a zone AE floodplain at elevation 186. Our survey crew did chase that elevation all the way through the site, so we're very confident in that delineation of the floodplain boundary. And then lastly, what came up when we were on site was a discussion as to whether or not this C series wetland would qualify as an ILSF. Volume-wise, it probably does qualify as an ILSF. However, its rim elevation, if you will, is elevation 185. And where our bordering floodplain is elevation 186, that ILSF is located entirely within the bordering floodplain. And I think by definition, it can't be both isolated and bordering. So I think it's probably best classified as just a feature of the BLSF. Certainly, if there was no BLSF, I think we would absolutely be calling it an isolated wetland, an isolated land subject to flooding. But I don't know that that's an appropriate demarcation in this case.
No, I agree with that. I had neglected to consider the fact that it was within the floodplain. So I was just thinking of it as isolated vegetated wetland, not as already being part of a resource area. So I concur with Eric's, with his conclusion here. And I think that the commission members who are in attendance will agree that these are all the things that we discussed in the field. This is what the findings were in the field. One thing I will say moving forward, it's our policy when we see a vernal pool, and this will qualify as a vernal pool based on the administrator and my observations of all of the wood frog. In fact, I think a couple of members saw a couple of late blooming wood frog tadpoles out there. But we usually ask, or we always ask as a matter of policy, that as the development plan progresses, that we certify the vernal pool. And based on the fact that it is in bordering land subject to flooding, it is certifiable. So moving forward, we'll ask you to do that.
Sure.
But other than that, I think that this is a plan that you can take to the bank and start planning your access.
Great, thank you. And certainly we don't take exception. We can investigate this during the fall breeding season and move forward with certification as appropriate.
Awesome.
Great.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, that being the case, I'll entertain a motion to close this hearing and issue the order of resource area delineation with the revisions as shown on this plan.
So moved.
Oh,
That was a tie. We'll give it to Ariane.
give it to Ariane.
The motion, seconded by Mike. Discussion.
Oh, I get cut out of the whole thing now?
You get to vote, Neil.
Ooh.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, opposed? Okay, by unanimous vote.
Great.
Sorry, Neil. I was
Very
muted.
much.
I didn't even vote. I didn't even second it, but
Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
And Eric, thank you for running those calculations. When you pointed that out to me,
You know, I didn't pick up on it at first either. I had to really kind of stare at the numbers for a minute and say, oh, yeah.
all
All
right,
right, well, hey, have a good night. Thank you, guys.
you got it.
Take care.
Okay. I see Tom and Elizabeth are here. Thank you for being cooperative. We were able to move up our agenda a little bit tonight. We really appreciate that. Maybe you do too. I'm going to dispense with the reading of the advertisement, and I'm going to open up the hearings for the Candlelight Lane lots. Those will be lots 56, lot 40, lot 42, and lot 55. And I think that, Elizabeth, I think that the administrator had a conversation with you today relative to the completion of the wetland delineation on that. Okay.
Correct. So I was unable to get confirmation from anybody at Fafford that that we can have that delineation completed. It was just late in the day by the time I spoke with Ann. And but I honestly don't see it as an issue. As I said to Ann, I guess my biggest request would be for lot 56. If we could get through that tonight, and you wanted to hold the other 3 just to make sure that you get the delineation, I don't see that as an issue. It's just that the potential or future homeowners of lot 56 are desperate to get a home started.
Okay, so fair enough. Can we put up lot 56 so that everybody can?
Can we just ask about the rain gardens?
Oh.
Yeah, so I also, I also reached out I reached out to them in one little bout to try and find out about the rain gardens. And I didn't hear back from anybody. But that, I know that's something that G&H had intended on doing the inspections for. So that's, regardless, I don't have an update on where they stand right now. I do believe that Wellington of Fafford had worked on, in the early spring, had worked on trying to get the, or I think they might have even had us stake them out, but I'm not 100% sure. The ones that weren't there and were supposed to be. But that's definitely something that I can make sure we have an inspection completed before the next meeting.
So here, what? Go ahead.
No, I was just wondering, did you, I know when we started early on, when you first started submitting these lots, we had talked about the rain garden issue. And does G&H have a report or a listing of the lots that have the rain gardens, or the lots that have been built without them, or anything, any information?
Yeah, I thought that we had submitted
Some time ago, I think.
yeah, quite, yeah, it was well before the winter.
Yeah.
And then we were going to re-inspect them, but then with the winter, we ended up, you know, they couldn't really build, or not that they couldn't, but we didn't think it was best for them to try and create these rain gardens in the winter. So the intention was that we were going to have them do that in the spring, and here we are. And of course we got sidetracked with other things, but so as soon as Ann brought that back to my attention, it's definitely something that, yeah, we have like I said, I believe we have a report and a list, and Dan Hazen is the engineer that did the inspections the last time, mostly noting where there weren't rain gardens. And Fafford's done a much better job of creating the rain gardens. I think they have a much better grasp of what they're supposed to look like, because before a lot of them, even when they were created, were raised flower beds and
they were mounded.
Exactly. So and we've had a few of the non-conservation lots that have rain gardens on them. We've had a few of those where we've as-builted them and confirmed that there's the half-foot of depression area. And the only thing I'm not sure of is I haven't personally seen what kind of vegetation was planted, but that's something that when Dan goes out to do the inspections for the other rain gardens, he'll be able to inspect those plants to see if they're, I guess, the correct plants, and more importantly, I guess, see if they're still, make sure that they're that they're alive. So.
Okay, so Good. What I'm going to say is when you complete that wetland delineation, you may be able to get creative with lots 43, 44, and what I think is lot 45 with that groundwater breakouts coming out, because you've almost got a wetland there. You have a wetland there now. So what you can do is, you know, and maybe work around that to enhance it as a wetland, and get a little creative there, because based on our observations, that groundwater is not going to stop coming out of the ground. So there's an opportunity.
Howard said we brought it came up, but we have a meeting every Tuesday, so it came up yesterday, and he said that it would stop flowing in a couple of weeks, and then it'll start flowing again in September, something like that. I'm like, okay.
Well, if you look at where it's coming out, there's already cattails growing there.
Right.
Wetland vegetation, and it's creating. There's some channelization. I think our vice chairman pointed that out.
Right.
So I think on lot 45, 44, and 43, you might be able to do something creative there that would enhance it as a wetland.
What I'll try to do is I'll try to get Dan's inspection to line up with Art Allen getting out there to finish that delineation. And that way they can have a discussion in the field about, and Art Allen's expertise would be much welcomed from our normal engineering-y look at the world.
We would appreciate that as well.
Yep. Okay,
so that being said, Amy, have you got all of that? Amy's taking.
I will have all of it.
Okay, we're trying to go easy on you this time. So this was the delineation that needs to be completed, and we talked about some outstanding issues being rain gardens on some of the lots that have already been constructed. So now we'll look at lot 56. Tom, have you got that plan to pull up for us?
Yes, if I could share the screen from Tom Libby.
the other, yes, not Thomas Libby, the Tom Libby.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's on here
You
twice.
should be all set.
Share. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes, there we go.
There it is, perfect. All right, so we're gonna be talking about lot 56 first. That's located right here on Candlelight Lane. So when we go to the building permit plot plan, you'll see that this is the wetland delineation from Art Allen on March 17th. That's the most recent one we have. And we adjusted the 25-foot buffer from the wetland and adjusted the rain garden and the silt fence to stay with outside of the 25-foot buffer. You'll see that the silt fence is right along, making sure that any silt or any other construction debris won't, go into the wetland. This red line right here is the 100-foot buffer from the March 17th delineation. In terms of the lot, we have the sump pump from the house outletting to the rain garden, just for giving extra water to the rain garden as needed. And the last important thing to note was we did move the post and rail fence up into the front of the rain garden easement.
Okay, so the observation I have is that in this instance, the applicant has made every effort to protect the 25-foot no disturb zone. They have increased the width and increased the length to get pretty close to what was originally required for the size of the rain garden. We've been out in the field. That particular area that Arthur Allen delineated, we agreed with that delineation at that point. Does anybody have any questions about this lot?
I just think it's an interesting observation that the sump pump is there to provide water to the rain garden as opposed to keep the basement dry.
It does.
I thought that was an interesting way of spinning that.
Now, was it lot 56 or 55, or did they both have part of that wall that was going to run across?
Wall.
That's
No
the
wall, no walls on these.
Yeah,
No,
the wall is in the other phase over by Candlelight and Lovers.
Oh, okay.
This is, yeah, this is the area that we've walked multiple times. That primarily built out the
Oh, yeah, it's got the
area.
The pizza.
This is some of the flattest land on the property.
It's very
Yeah.
flat.
Yeah.
All right.
So what is the slab is at 242?
242. And, oh, there we go.
Oh, wait a minute.
All right.
So
The slab's at 237.
237.
And the wetland, I'm sorry, the rain garden is around 244 and a half
So
at the bottom.
The slab you were referring to, and is the garage.
Garage, right.
So the lot is, I think we have a high 243. So this is one of those areas that it's actually not, it's not well graded for the rain garden. So the sump pump, I think, is particularly helpful in this particular case. The land is flat, it's relatively flat. So it's not like there's gonna be a lot of runoff, but there is a slight slope up towards the road. I'm sorry, from the road up to where the rain garden is.
Right.
But because it's so flat from left to right, I think there's still gonna, I mean, obviously there's water that's creating the wetland. You know, the area, I believe, is gonna stay, you know, wet enough to, plus it's very, it's just outside the 25-foot no disturb. So I don't think the area is going to drain out to the road, I guess is.
I don't think so. No. And I have another observation. I strongly suspect that with a little bit of time and the continued running of that groundwater, that water for the rain garden is not going to be a problem.
I would totally agree with you.
I think that I think the plants will have wet feet. So, you know, normally I'd be afraid, but field conditions dictate that. We already saw some expansion of the resource area over what the original delineation 10 years ago was. I think we're going to continue to see that trend. So between the pump and the expansion of the wetland, I think the rain garden is going to be in good shape there.
We could introduce beaver. That might help.
Let's not complicate this any further. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Where's this site in relation to the one that we walked that had the incursion where they cleared way back into and pushed it back into the, basically into the wetlands almost?
Yeah.
Is that 56 or am I on the wrong side of the circle?
The other side.
It would be lot 42.
42.
It was one of those.
42?
I think it was lot 42.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so we're on the other side, okay. I couldn't.
Correct.
All right, well, not all the way around, but okay.
Right.
Yeah.
90 degrees.
It's the lot numbers and the plot numbers that are.
Yeah, they
I
get
know, it's
confusing.
true, right.
Plot thickens.
Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to close this hearing and issue the order of conditions for lot 56.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Brian, Mike, second. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, by unanimous vote. Now, we'll move to lot 40. If Thomas can get us there.
Yep. All right, so we have lot 40 located right here, right next to lot 56. And moving to the building permit plot plan. As you can see, the 25-foot no disturb. it goes through the rain garden easement. So we did a similar tactic and make sure we just moved the rain garden outside of the no disturb, and made sure the silt fence was in between. We didn't have to adjust the size or the shape of the rain garden there. We're just able to move it out. Similarly, like the last lot, we have a drain going to the rain garden. In this case, we did not need to use a sump pump, as it can be fed by gravity. Grading is similar. It's to the previous lot. Grading moves from the front of the lot and to the back of the lot, so any water will flow down in that direction towards the wetland and the rain gardens.
Oh, here we go. We got a real plan.
Yeah. And again, we moved the proposed post and rail fence all to around this entire interior island of Candlelight Lane. We moved it to the easement line as opposed to the open space line, just to provide some additional protection to the rain gardens and to keep the post and rail fence out of the 25-foot no disturb.
Thank you. So that drain is a perimeter drain?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So what I'm going to propose for lots 40, 42, and 55 is that we prepare the orders, and then upon completion of the
Delineation.
right, but we'll have them prepared.
Awesome. That would be fantastic.
So we're going to keep the hearings open, but we will have the documents prepared.
Okay.
So now, Amy, how you doing?
Amy Sutherland?
I think she would quit.
No, she can't quit.
Okay, that's all right.
All right, so that was for lot 40. Now let's move to lot 42, please.
So lot 42, located right over on this side of the lot. When we talked about the silt fence that was in the wetland, that is located right here. So moving to the building permit plot plan, similar to lot 56, we adjusted the shape of the rain garden to fit outside of the 25-foot no disturb with a silt fence in between. The post rail fence runs along the outside of the rain garden easement. Here, the house is a slab foundation and it doesn't have a perimeter drain. But as you'll see, that the grading slopes down towards the rain garden and the wetland, so any runoff water will contribute to the rain garden.
And that silt fence was removed from the wetland, I believe?
We requested that it was, and Jim followed up with, actually, I think Tom went out in the field and actually marked it, and Jim followed up with Alex, who's on site, but I was unable to get confirmation that it was removed, but I think there's a high probability that it was, and if it wasn't, certainly it will be before the next meeting, and we'll be able to confirm that prior to you issuing the order.
So once again, the applicant has taken steps to minimize, avoid rather, the 25-foot no disturb zone, and they've changed the shape of the rain garden to get approximately the same amount of area while avoiding the no disturb zone. Are there any other questions on lot 42?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Neil.
Question, I'm just a little concerned about the narrowness of the easement that's accessible in between lot 41 and 42 for maintenance. is that narrow strip going to be sufficient for them to do the maintenance without having to go through the 25-foot zone, no disturb zone?
Okay. Where are the two access?
There's one access between 40, I think 40 and 41, but
Correct. Located right here.
is there another, so what he's saying,
There's an access by.
is there an access on the other side of lot 40?
That might be difficult too, because that's fairly steep slope and the wetlands at the toe of the slope. You see, I keep pointing.
There's an access, it looks like, from
Right there, yep.
right here. You can go.
Yeah, but that's pretty steep grades.
Yeah.
In there, and I'm guessing that it's lot 45 is where the groundwater breakout actually is. It would be very difficult to turn that corner. That's a 20 scale. These are 20 scales?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we have there, we may have a situation where
is 40, Tom, you don't know if 43 is already constructed, do you?
you're looking at 5 feet.
Yeah,
I believe 43 and 44 are both already constructed. I would have to confirm, but I believe there's existing buildings on both.
So too.
I think so too.
But the rain gardens aren't.
The rain gardens are not.
Correct.
yeah. So my thought was if lot 43 isn't sold already, which I have a feeling it is, but if it's not sold, then we can certainly add an access between 43 and 42. Because I think if Tom, if you go back to the 42, I think that's flat enough that we would definitely be able to access. That would be my first thought on what we could do. But if 43 is already sold, then it's not something that we can, it's very difficult to get people to agree to easements after they already bought a piece of land.
Well, I understand. So what kind of maintenance would we be looking at? I mean, is it the kind of thing that could be done by hand with, hand equipment, hand tools, wheelbarrows? Or are we thinking, the need for power equipment?
I mean, our thought had been that it wouldn't be equipment. At the absolute worst case scenario, we were thinking like a Bobcat, but more likely than not, it would be hand equipment. I mean, I think the rain garden, as long as it's constructed properly, it should maintain its shape and depth appropriately. And so the only real maintenance would be to remove and replace some of the shrubbery if that were to die, which certainly can be done with a wheelbarrow,
Neil, do you think that if, once it's roughed out, they'll be using regular equipment? Do you think for maintenance purposes, the 5 feet would be enough for handwork, or do you think we should proceed with investigating another easement? What do you think?
Well, I think another access point would certainly be worth looking into. If not, maybe there was some way we could, I don't know, almost maybe put something else along that 25-foot line in between the two, just to keep people on the path, so to speak, in between those two, so that there's no. I just don't want that. We've worked hard to get the protection for that 25-foot, and I just wouldn't want to see that. Not that it would be frequent, but still, I just thought it looked a little bit narrow for
It's 5 feet.
potential kind of maintenance that might need to be done down the road.
All right, well, we can certainly look into the access. Like I said, if 43 is not already sold, that's something that we can explore. And if it is already sold, we can take a look at, Tom, can you go back to the, yeah. So I guess if it is already sold, we can take a look at that access easement, because we have the right to, that comes in from that bottom left of the plan. Because even if that's currently steep, we have the right to regrade within that easement. So, you know, maybe we can make it a little bit more accessible. Maybe we can make that access a little more accessible if the 42, 43 access is not a possibility.
I'm thinking that might not be, I mean, I don't know. But we had talked about being creative with lots 43, 44, and 45, knowing that we have all of that available groundwater, doing something creative with a wetland there. You create that, you're not going to be driving equipment over it.
Right.
So the easement between 43 and 42 could serve multiple purposes. Let's see how we make out with that, Elizabeth, all right?
Okay.
You know, that would, because I know the grades on those other lots, 45, 46, and probably 47. Yeah, in that area. I'm thinking, I know they were steep. And
Yeah, they are. I agree. They are steep from where the houses are down to where the wetland is. I'm just, I don't know that we ever staked it out to know exactly where. Yeah, well, we'll take a look at 42 and 42, 43.
I was just concerned about the narrowness of it. I don't want to create a situation that requires, you know, superhuman efforts to recreate something, or, you know, twist people's arms to get easements or anything like that, for something that may or may not ever be a problem with maintenance down the road. I just thought it was worth exploring.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said, we'll check into it, and if it's not already sold, I don't see that additional access being an issue at all. So hopefully that works out. And if not, we will come back and have a discussion about it at the next meeting.
Okay. So we're checking right now. That's lot 43.
That was 42.
Yeah, but then the abutting lot is 40.
Yes, the abutting lot is 43.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Somebody's living there.
They have occupants. We have the building department's record.
They have
occupied.
It's occupied.
So that one's going to be off the table.
Yep.
I guess it's built then.
That one's built. So what we'll have to do is we can put something in condition saying something to the effect that, you know, if there's plant mortality, it's access through the existing easement, and that the work be done by hand.
Okay.
Then that way we don't have to worry about people running equipment down through there. Is that okay, Neil?
Right, because they're going to be running equipment down there to get to 43 and 44 as well. So,
well, they may go through. They may have to go along the lot lines to do that. I'm not sure.
I know, and I want to avoid that as well. So, all right, well, see what you can do.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then the final one we have here is lot 55.
All right, lot 55, located right next to 56, which we talked about earlier, has
What's wrong with this one?
what's that?
What's wrong with this one?
I don't know yet. No, just kidding. It's good. There's a
We'll
sump
find
pump.
something.
There's the sump pump, once again, running the drain to the rain garden easement. And the rain garden, you'll see that this is completely outside of the 25-foot buffer. So we didn't have to move anything here. The silt fence is right at the edge of the lot. The post and rail fence is right along the front of the rain garden easement. The grading, once again, is relatively flat. So that's why we would need to use a sump pump to get the perimeter drain to outlet towards the rain garden.
Sounded like a motorcycle.
Oh yeah, that was at my house.
All right. Questions on this one? This one's one of the more straightforward lots that we've seen.
I didn't know Fafford had any of those.
Well, they come up occasionally.
Even a broken watch is right twice a day.
Right.
Okay, so what I'll recommend, what I'm going to suggest on this one is what we did for lot 40. We'll prepare the order of conditions, get it all ready to go, and then, you know, tie in that permit with the completion of the wetland delineation and plan for establishment of other rain gardens or created wetlands in consultation with Arthur Allen. Okay, so now what we need to do, we need to come up with a continuation date for 40, 42, and 55. Lot 56, we moved to close, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so
What are we looking at, October?
we can go to June 24th, I think.
At early October?
Elizabeth, do you think you'll have an opportunity to meet with Ecotech on this? And
Yeah, I would. I don't know how busy they are, but I would hope that we could get something done.
that's 2 weeks. See, what I'm looking at here is, you know, what we don't want to do is, you know, set aside a block of time and then have.
No, I understand.
I mean, we could potentially go to the 8th, and give 8th of July. We've got the 4 lots up on Lover's Lane. We could put these on that night.
I think whichever works for you, I will make sure that we get that we can get the.
We really would like to get these off of our plate too.
Yeah, so if the 24th is fine, I will make sure that they I'll just pull whatever strings I need to get the wetland delineation done.
All right, so we're gonna put.
Bellingham Shores, what do you need, half an hour?
Are you guys going to want to approve that delineation prior to issuing those, or are you just looking for us to at least?
Yeah, well, I don't know that the whole board. Maybe I can get out and take a peek, or Ann, or Ann and I, or
Okay.
we usually. When we're dealing with Arthur Allen, we don't usually have major discrepancies. So yeah, in other words, yeah, we'd like to take a peek at it.
Okay.
So do you think that the 24th might be a little?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you want to try it for the 24th?
Well, if she thinks it's going to work, we'll do it.
She thinks she may need more.
I think certainly I can try. I just think it's going to be tight for.
Okay.
Wait, you got enough? Okay. It's
Right. So
crazy
you're
enough.
on for the 8th.
July 8th at
July 8th at
7.
7 with those 4. So I think, why don't we just tack these on and hold them in order?
Because we've already continued this INRAD to 7:30.
Aha. Okay, and then we have a new filing.
That's correct.
Well, what are the other?
Here's what we can do. We'll have to put you on for, because we already have stuff scheduled. We're looking at going to the 8th at,
So maybe 8:30?
like 8:30.
Okay, yeah, that's not bad.
So you'll start at 7 and we'll do the first 4. We should be able to get those in a half hour. And then at 8:30, we should be able to wrap up these 3.
I actually think that these 3 are going to be more apt to happen quickly than the other 4. I don't know if that's something that you want to try and change now, is put these, you can either put these 3 at 7 or you can move them all if you to the later time.
You know what?
Well, if
we do have flexibility in accordance with the governor's order. So you are on at 7 o'clock for these 4 lots at Lover's Lane. If you are requesting that we would do the 3 lots on candlelight in their stead, we'll put these on later in the meeting.
Yeah, I would say that because there's a stronger chance that I could be asking for a continuation on those other 4.
So then I'm going to make a suggestion. Why don't we just put them all on at 7? Put them all on at 7. We have something scheduled for 7:30. We'll get through what we can. If we are running out of time, then we'll have to continue to the end of the meeting.
Perfect.
I think that's perfect. Yep.
That's why she's the administrator.
Exactly. Somebody's going to keep all you hellions in order.
Wildings.
All right, so that would be all at 7. Okay.
So I will entertain a motion to continue the hearings for Lot 40, Lot 42, and Lot 55 Candlelight Lane to the evening of July 8th at 7.
So moved.
Mary Ann.
Second.
That one to Mike.
Perennial.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, by unanimous vote.
Thank
Very
you
good.
very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Keep us posted, Elizabeth.
Yes.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you very much.
Okay, don't go anywhere, Commission.
9:55.
If Thomas can give us our screen back.
Jim could just give us our screen back. There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Thank you.
Just a couple other things that we need. Has everyone had an opportunity to peruse the minutes of May 13th?
Yep, looks fine to me.
Wow, okay.
Wow.
That doesn't mean anything. Come on now.
Neil has something to say.
Neil gave us the
Oh, did you?
okay sign.
Duh.
I entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the meeting of May 13th.
Awesome.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, by unanimous vote. The next thing is we have a permit to be signed for the ORAD.
Okay, so what I'm thinking, yeah, we have a few permits to sign. They're not all ready. But I was thinking if we're, rather than try to get together like tomorrow or Friday morning, if we're going to be meeting out on site for a site walk on Tuesday evening, could we sign them then?
Will we have enough signatures?
So we'll have Neil and Mike
And Cliff,
and Cliff and
for sure. That means we need Noel or
Shawn or Brian come and drag himself, or
I'd like to
Ariane
get there
skip and work.
later. 4:30 might be tough, but I should be at that sidewalk.
Yeah, I could always come by at a different time and sign it like the next day or something.
And Shawn might be, if we reach out to Shawn, he might be able to show up.
because I don't think Sean's back to work. So
Because we have a few things to sign. I'd like to get it all done at the same time rather than try to meet with everybody and scramble and do that.
rather than do it in dribs and drabs like some of our consultants give us information.
All right, so we can just do
All right, we'll
that
try to do it then.
on Tuesday.
Okay.
It's a
And if
sign
we-
of the times.
And if we run into a problem, then we'll deal with it somehow.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
No.
Thank you, Maestro Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Anytime, guys.
Be fast on the trigger today. Thank you.
Yeah. Keep my eye out on it.
Stay healthy, everybody.
All right, take
Okay.
care.
We'll see some of you guys on Tuesday.
Good day.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks.